The camera opens on a tired young man with hollow eyes, sitting alone on a park bench in Chicago. He's holding a brown envelope, his hands trembling slightly. Looking into the camera, he speaks, "You're probably wondering how I ended up here, holding the biggest moment of my life in my hands. But if you give me a few minutes, I'll tell you how one small act of kindness, one I almost didn't do, changed everything." The screen fades to 5 years earlier. Back then, the young man was a 17-year-old named Jake Thompson. He lived in a modest apartment in a worn-out part of Milwaukee with his hard-working mother, Cheryl, and his little sister, Emma. Jake's father had died when he was 9, and since then, life had been a constant struggle. His mother worked 2 jobs, night shifts at the hospital and daytime at a diner, just to put food on the table. Jake carried around a quiet anger. He didn't talk much, didn't dream much either. At school, he was the kid who sat in the back, did just enough to pass, and left as soon as the bell rang. He didn't believe in good people, or in luck. He believed in getting through the day. One cold autumn afternoon, after his shift bagging groceries at a corner store, Jake saw an old man stranded on the side of the road. The man's car had broken down, and he was trying, unsuccessfully, to push it off the street. Drivers kept passing by, ignoring him. Jake stopped walking. His backpack was heavy, his legs sore. He had an algebra test the next day. But something made him cross the street. He helped the man, who introduced himself as Mr. Walter Green. Despite his old coat and wrinkled hands, there was something sharp and kind in his eyes. After they got the car parked safely, Mr. Green insisted on giving Jake a ride home. During the short drive, they talked. Walter asked Jake about his life, school, and future plans. Jake gave short answers at first, then mentioned he liked building things, he was fascinated by how stuff worked, but college. That was out of reach. Walter just smiled and said, "One act of kindness can be the start of everything, Jake. You'll see." Over the next few weeks, Walter kept in touch. He began stopping by Jake's apartment on weekends. He taught Jake how to fix small engines, solder wires, and think in systems. The old man had once been a mechanical engineer who worked on military aircraft before retiring. He became Jake's mentor, a kind of grandfather he never had. Jake started to believe again, in himself, in the possibility of more. Then, one Saturday, Walter didn't show up. And the next Saturday. Jake tried calling, then finally walked to the old man's apartment. The landlord was locking up the door. Walter had passed away quietly in his sleep. No family, no fanfare. At the small funeral, a sharply dressed woman approached Jake. "You must be Jake Thompson," she said. "Mr. Green spoke of you all the time." She handed him a small box. Inside was an old silver pocket watch and a handwritten note, "Keep going. You matter more than you think. W.G." Jake wore the watch every day. The next 2 years were different. Jake focused, worked harder than ever, and applied for scholarships. He got one. During college, he fixed bikes and electronics for neighbors to help pay rent. He started tutoring kids in STEM on weekends. The kindness he'd received from Walter flowed through him like a quiet current. After graduating, Jake was offered a job at a top tech company in Seattle. He almost said yes, but something inside him couldn't let go of what Walter had given him. He decided instead to move back to Milwaukee and open a small repair shop. He called it Ripple Tech. It wasn't just a business. It became a space for kids to learn, fix, create, and dream, especially those like Jake used to be. No fancy equipment, but lots of heart. Every Saturday, he hosted free workshops. One of the regulars was a 12-year-old named Marcus, a quiet boy with a brilliant mind and no father at home. Jake saw himself in Marcus. He mentored him just like Walter had done for him. Years went by. The shop survived thanks to local support and Jake's unwavering passion. People who once ignored broken things now brought them to Jake, not just for repair, but because they felt seen. Then one December evening, a man in a black suit showed up at Ripple Tech. He introduced himself as Anthony Miller, director of a national nonprofit focused on community innovation. He shook Jake's hand and said, "Do you know who nominated you for the Ripple Award?" Jake looked confused. "What award?" The man smiled. "Marcus. He wrote us the most powerful letter I've read in 10 years. He handed Jake a letter and an envelope. Inside, confirmation that Jake had been chosen for the Ripple Award. An honor given to one person a year whose small actions had made a huge difference. The scene cuts back to Jake on the park bench, the same envelope in his hand. "I used to think kindness didn't mean much. That doing something small wouldn't change anything. But it does. It always does." The camera widens. Jake stands and walks toward a boy waiting at the edge of the park, Marcus. They walk off together as soft music swells. The screen fades to black, and a final message appears. Every act of kindness is a ripple. Let yours reach the shore.